Please welcome President of Iowa State University, Stephen Leath.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be with you at this first Iowa Ag Summit. I want to start by thanking Bruce Rastetter for hosting this event for all of us today, and I want to thank all of you for participating in this important forum to address the critical needs, concerns, and challenges facing agriculture in the world today. And there's no better place to hold this forum than in Iowa. Iowa is truly an agricultural powerhouse. We're a leader in the production of row crops and livestock and eggs, and we're one of the top agricultural production areas in the entire world. Iowa is also home to one of the greatest agriculturists of our time, Dr. Norman Borlaug, who was born near Cresco, about 190 miles northeast of here. And as many of you know, he went on to become the father of the Green Revolution, a Nobel Prize winner, and the creator of the World Food Prize, which is housed right here in Des Moines. Dr. Borlaug was credited with saving 1 billion lives from starvation through his cutting-edge development of high-yielding, disease-resistant wheat varieties in the mid-20th century. And now we must build on Dr. Borlaug's success and undertake what many are calling the second Green Revolution. I actually had the privilege to meet Dr. Borlaug on a number of occasions. After earning my bachelor's and master's degrees in plant sciences and my PhD in plant pathology, my ag science career included travel to Mexico to conduct research on wheat diseases and walk the same fields that Dr. Borlaug walked in Texcoco and Obregon. And like so many of you here today, I have a true passion and appreciation for agriculture and the land-grant mission of universities like Iowa State University. In fact, that's what drew me to Iowa State, where I'm now the university's first agricultural president in 50 years. And as one of the first and best land-grant institutions, Iowa State is a world leader in agricultural research, outreach, and of course, training the next generation of our agricultural leaders. Land grants were founded with the ideals that higher education should be available to all and focus on the core practical subjects like agriculture and engineering. They were also created with the idea that there would be research on real-world problems to improve people's lives and that the results would be distributed to all that needed them. Dr. Borlaug himself was a product of the land-grant system, and at Iowa State, we too inspired and continue to inspire great agricultural leaders, most notably George Washington Carver and Henry Wallace, men whose visions changed the world. It was George Washington Carver who said, "Since new developments are the products of a creative mind, we must therefore stimulate and encourage that type of mind in every way possible." For more than 150 years now, Iowa State has been doing precisely that. And today, our College of Agriculture and Life Sciences is ranked in the top 5 in the world. And we have the 3rd largest undergraduate enrollment in the country of any College of Agriculture. We're training future leaders in fields such as agronomy, animal science, plant pathology, environmental and food science, and global resource systems. Somewhere in Curtis Hall right now, which is the home to our College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, I believe we'll find the next Norman Borlaug, and that man or that woman will help solve the greatest challenge in the history of agriculture, in fact, the greatest challenge in the history of the world. And that challenge is this: how can we produce enough feed, food, fiber, and fuel to meet the needs of a global population that is expected to exceed 9 billion people by 2050? How can we produce it all in an environmentally sustainable way that protects our land, our water quality and quantity? And how can we ensure that the population has full access to high-quality food? Now, the vast majority of the population growth by 2050 is projected to occur in areas that are already experiencing food insecurity. For example, sub-Saharan Africa's population could more than double by then. And at Iowa State, our Center for Sustainable Rural Livelihoods is helping to fight malnutrition and poverty in those areas. Much of our center's efforts are headquartered in Uganda, specifically the Kamuli district. To give you an example of what is happening, I traveled there a couple of years ago and witnessed the incredible impact of our work. I visited with a farmer and his family. This farmer had a child who died of malnutrition, but after working with our program for just 2 years, He finally had a roof on his house. He was raising his own crops, his own livestock, and his other children were well fed and healthy. It was a incredibly eye-opening and rewarding experience. But the truth is, the challenges of 2050 aren't confined to the developing countries. The impact's going to be felt worldwide. And Iowa State, therefore, has launched a global food security initiative to bring together expertise from across several disciplines to focus research on 6 key platforms: livestock, seed, crops, water, post-harvest waste, and agricultural policies. But what exactly are we up against? Take crop production in farmland as just one example. The amount of farmland available to feed each person is projected to shrink dramatically from nearly a full acre 25 years ago to well under half an acre by 2050, meaning with that population and that farmland ratio, we need to optimize every bit of production land that we have. And Iowa State is in the lead in moving us forward to improve productivity. We're working to launch the next generation of precision agriculture by gaining a better understanding of the relationship between the genetic structure of plants and the impact of the environment on those plants. Genetically modified foods are also an important option to increase production. At Iowa State, we're engaged in science-based analysis of the risks and benefits of GM plant and animal products in order to provide a healthy, nutritious food supply while ensuring that we safeguard our consumers and the environment. And the environment and the climate are critical components of this challenge as well. We're facing disease threats, a divided view on the impacts of global climate change, and issues concerning water quality and quantity. It is projected that nearly half of the world's population in 2050 will face water scarcity. One way to protect the water is to make adjustments in the way we farm. Iowa State is the forefront of new techniques to reduce runoff that can impair water quality. Just one example, by converting a small portion, less than 10% of row crop fields to prairie strips, growers can reduce soil and sediment loss by over 95%. We also understand the importance of adding value to agriculture and reducing our dependence on petroleum. In cooperation with the state of Iowa, we began anticipating more than a decade ago the emergence of this bioeconomy. We initially focused on corn-based ethanol and biofuels, and as a result, we saw the U.S. ethanol industry leap forward. We produced just over 2 billion gallons in 2003, and now we produce over 13 billion gallons. So what's next? Last summer, Iowa's first cellulosic ethanol production came about. That's ethanol made from biomass like switchgrass and corn stover. DuPont Pioneer is getting ready to open their cellulosic ethanol plant just 10 miles from Iowa State. And that's not by coincidence. That's because we developed the corn stover harvest, storage, and handling techniques for DuPont. But the bioeconomy is much more than just biofuels. We're spearheading the next generation of bio-based products. We're heading 2 National Science Foundation centers, one for biorenewable chemicals and the other for bioplastics and biocomposites. Our researchers are working to develop techniques so that one day chemicals and everything from building materials to personal care products as well as plastics can be produced strictly from biorenewables. And Iowa State is also providing leadership for the Cultivation Corridor, a public-private partnership working to cultivate innovation and accelerate growth in agriculture, biorenewables, biotechnology, and advanced manufacturing. We want to make Central Iowa the premier region in the country for these sectors. You'll be thinking of us as the Silicon Valley of ag biosciences. I want to take a moment, though, and talk about one thing that's essential to overcoming all of the challenges that are for us by 2050, and that's adequate funding for agricultural research. There is great concern on my campus at Iowa State, throughout the entire state of Iowa, and throughout the United States, that we are directing far less money toward agricultural research than we should be. For example, for every dollar that goes towards USDA research, there's $12 that goes towards NIH funding, the National Institute of Health. So while funding cures for diseases is hugely important, shouldn't we also be investing in research that can prevent these diseases in the first place through proper nutrition and access to high-quality, nutritious food? And there's one more point I'd like to make, a very important point about meeting this challenge. While Iowa State is a pioneer in agricultural research, we're also a pioneer, you could say the pioneer, in putting that knowledge to work. Iowa State was the first university to establish extension and outreach in the world. And now our team reaches more than 1 million people every year. I'll never forget a conversation I had with Dr. Borlaug, who said he couldn't have had the success with his work if he hadn't had face-to-face conversations with farmers. His famous quote with research was, "Take it to the farmer." And that's exactly what ISU Extension and Outreach is all about, moving our research to the field, to the communities, to the people that are actually producing our food, our feed, our fiber. They make the results of our research available to all those who need it. And as Extension and Outreach demonstrates, we cannot navigate the path to 2050 alone. In order to solve the greatest challenge in human history, we must share our resources, share our research, as well as our expertise. I can't emphasize enough that this is not a problem that only affects developing countries. This is a problem that's going to affect every single person on this planet. Food is our foundation. Dr. Borlaug put it best in his 1970 Nobel lecture. He said, "Without food, man can live but a few weeks. Also without it, all other components of social justice are meaningless." And that's why this has to be our top priority. We must think bigger, we must act bolder if we are to feed and sustain over 9 billion people. And we need to act now if we're going to ensure a safe and healthy future. Thank you, folks.